Ooh. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 100 of the Stand-Off with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're now going to be here live Wednesday on Facebook throughout the season, which is just getting underway. Welcome back, Richie. It's been a long time, but how was your off-season?
Off-season's been good, mate. Yeah, I've managed to get away late December, early January for a trip to Auckland when the weather was wasn't as harsh as it is at the moment. Just been kicking back and enjoying other off-season sports that are on while the league isn't on. They're watching the Phoenix and the Breakers and whatnot. So yeah, had a good time. In yourself?
Yeah, I didn't really do anything, mate. I watched American football. My New York Giants decided to actually be competitive for a little bit this year, so I had a reason to watch, and that was about it. Didn't really go away anywhere, just the usual Christmas stuff, and just counting down the days till the footy season started because that's kind of my life. But yeah, on that note, we've hit 100 episodes. I can honestly say that I thought Paul would have given us the boot before this milestone, but
yeah,
it's fantastic to be back, and I'm looking forward to this year. And see Simon and Jacko are here. Cheers, guys, for joining us back. I know it's been a while. This show is going to be a little bit loosey-goosey because we're still really getting back into the groove after what feels like forever since the World Cup. But from now on for the season, we're going to be here on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Here on Facebook, but you can also, if you want, go to iHeartRadio or Spotify and look for us there. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. So yeah, tonight it's a little bit of a special. We're going to cover the stories of the off season and YouTube, as Paul's reminded me now. And I see Mark Hammer is here too. He's about to do a big interview with Andrew Webster in about half an hour. So watch that when we're finished, guys. Don't leave us. But yeah, we'll cover the top stories. We'll do a brief review of the trials and all-star matches. Then we've got some questions that were sent through to us during the week I asked for, and I'm sure there'll be some questions throughout the show. Jacko's already talking about the preseason points, which I'm sure we're going to get into.
Hey, we're top four, man. We're top four.
Top four, exactly. So we'll go through the questions. We've got some there from some people from Facebook. Ruin Hammer submitted quite a few as well. And then we'll end the night just with a quick preview of our prediction show, which will be next week, which I'm sure Rich is looking forward to since he dominates that show every year.
We'll see.
But yeah, send us comments and questions throughout the show, and we may as well just jump straight into it, Richie.
Let's.
So the first one we just briefly talked about off here, but the NRL and the RLPA, the Rugby League Players Association, are still at loggerheads regarding a new deal, and the players have said they may go on strike if a resolution is not found. But in a sign of progress, the NRL and the RPA have agreed to terms on a CBA for the NRLW. There's a whole stack of everything that's included in it, but I've got a breakdown here saying the key terms include policies relating to pregnancy and parental arrangements incorporating support for pregnant players and leave provisions alongside support for primary carers and parents of infants up to 24 months. I know there's a lot more. That was like the big takeaway. That was one of the big concerns. They've also increased the minimum a woman player can get from what it was before. And they've also talked about in about 2 years' time, they're looking at adding more teams. So we were kind of talking last year, Richie, that it was going to be there's this many this year. Next year, they'll add 3 more. Year after that. But yeah, so Jacko said, yeah, they're looking at the Warriors having a side again next year. That's still a possibility. Hopefully it is. They've kind of already been in there. So I think in terms of getting one in quickly, getting a team that's already been involved back is the best idea. But what's your take on all this talk, about strikes and stuff, Richie?
It's, like you say, there's a little bit of progress, and nice to see some policies in place for the NRLW and bits and pieces that could occur in that competition. So nice to see them get a bit more money too, a bit more money than I make. Maybe you reckon I could crack the NRLW?
I don't know.
Probably not.
It's a really tough competition.
It is a really tough competition. But yeah, it's, you were kind of saying before we came on, you don't think they'll strike a bit of an empty threat in your opinion?
Personally, yeah, I think so. I think, like as I said before we went on here last year, that last week for the trials, that the players were going to tape over the NRL logo and delay kickoff times as like a soft start to their strike. And then before the first game, I was at the first trial game, obviously the Warriors one, and I noticed there was no tape. And then I saw that the players have decided not to do that. So I kind of think it's that kind of shows that maybe they aren't going to do it. But it is all about, as Jacko said, it's about the money. I know there are some important things in it. I don't want to seem that callous, but it does come down to a lot of the money.
Look, what I think has been kind of cool about this, though, is that it's not been about how much can the top player get paid, but it's been about making sure that the guys at the bottom get a better minimum salary, that the women who have, let's be honest, very little leverage are being supported by the men to get some proper things in place. So kudos to the guys who it's not been me, especially by the top guys. It's just been very kind of cool.
Yeah. But yeah, is there anything else you want to add to it?
Just that there's no chance in hell I'd be playing for the Broncos men's team, Chris.
I see Robbo says he loves my mullet. It's not actually a mullet. It just looks that way because of the headset. I'd take it off to show you guys, but I don't want to delay our cast by how majestic it looks.
Your T-shirt looks nice, Brad. Why don't you show that off?
My Paliacina T-shirt. Yes. It's a beautiful gift from Ruin Hammer. But yes, we'll talk a lot about that man a little bit later.
I'm wearing my Torpy one. There you go.
So yeah, I still haven't made. I'm still thinking about it. I'm making it's people watching won't know, but Richard knows. I created a picture last year, of the Warriors being the one. We the one, and I was very tempted to make a shirt. We'll see what happens. But and yeah, get good money. Yeah, I don't know about that. But next bit of news, there's a whole lot of signings. As always happens in the off season, Richie, as we know, there's players coming and going.
Yep.
I didn't get them all. And Robbie wants to ask if you want to join the fantasy league, Richie. We'll talk about that off air, Robbo, and I'll get that sorted or denied.
You might twist my
arm. But yeah, lots of signing news. First up, we had Dylan Brown. He signed an 8-year extension with the Eels, Richie.
Yeah.
What's your take on the 8-year deal? We know my thoughts on long-term deals are great for the player, but it's a massive risk for the club.
But massive for the Eels. I think Dylan Brown last season was a real sort of coming of age season for Dylan Brown. It's probably, if not the best, number 6 running around the comp. He's top 3 for sure. So he's in fantastic form, and I think it's great for the Eels that he's signed on. Yeah, it's just the length of the deal that's a strange one. 8 years, you don't see a lot of 8-year deals thrown around. I know we had a 10-year deal with Taumalolo, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great deal for Dylan. I haven't looked into the ins and outs of the deal to see like how much it increases per year. Because that's why you see a lot of the big names will sign a 2-3 year deal because they know at the end of that they can get a lot more money than what they may have done if they did a 8-year staggered approach. But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of incentive money wise for Dylan to sign 8 years. How old will he be? I have no idea how old he is now.
I think he's still really young. Is he like 22, 23 still?
I think so. Maybe 24 at a stretch.
Yeah, he's still really young.
It's basically a end of career type deal for that position anyway. In the halves, but he may go on longer. But yeah, great for him. In sad news though, we'll move on. my man Ben Murdoch-Masila was released from the Warriors and unfortunately joined the Dragons on a 2-year deal. So he went from being my favorite player to going to the team that I despise. So that's going to be interesting.
That is a worst case scenario for you, Brad, isn't it? In terms of a recruitment, bit of recruitment news.
And yes, despite my favorite player going to the Dragons, my hate for the Dragons will continue in 2023. If that's something people have enjoyed listening to me show no bias. Yeah, I hate them so much. But yeah, great for him to get a 2-year deal. I know he was looking for a bit more of a long-term thing, which the Warriors weren't willing to offer at the time. I kind of agree with them. He wasn't really delivering what they probably were wanting. So I understand the move. And the Dragons were basically desperate for anybody. So it's great that he probably got a bit more coin going there. So hope he goes well, but not too well. And the Warriors, they weren't finished bringing out the broom and sweeping out talent. They also released Taniela Otokolo and Kina Kipu, which Otokolo I could kind of see coming, Richie. He wasn't really being used when they brought Freddie Lussick into the team. And then when he was being used, he wasn't really being used in a way that was beneficial to him. And Kina Kipu was a bit of a surprise. I think I saw on Ruin Hammer's show that they had heard he came back in the preseason a bit overweight and things like that. And it might have been more of an attitude thing. I can't speak. I wasn't there. It's just all speculation. But there was a lot of big raps on him and his brother. But at least we got one of the brothers still. Unfortunately, he's injured. But yeah, and Jacko said Brown messed Otokolo up. Yeah, Brown was trying to turn him into a Jazz Tavanga forward type player, which wasn't in his skill set. So, yeah, unfortunately there. What's your takes on those two being released, Richie?
Yeah, it's a shame. Like we spoke probably over the past season that we wanted to see the Kepu boys at some point get a run. Otokolo we did see get a run, but maybe like Jacko said, used a bit out of position, and then they've brought Freddie Lussick in and pretty much leapfrogged him in the hooking department. So I think the writing was on the wall with him a wee bit. And we heard murmurings for a while leading up to the news of his release that he would be looking elsewhere. So not such a surprise, but a bit of a shame.
He found himself a woman when he was over in Australia too. So moving over there, as I've said to you, I think on the show and off the Warriors need to start getting ladies luring their boyfriends to the club as opposed to away from the club. Just Cameron, I know you're always watching. That's always a good idea. Send those ladies out. But yeah, continuing with the Warriors for one more. Young, we'll talk about him a bit later in the trials, but young fullback Tane Tuapiki. Apologize if I get your last name wrong. I'm going to be working hard on getting my pronunciations right so I don't make Richard do them all. He got himself a contract upgrade with the Warriors for the 2023 season after his impressive showing in the trial. And Andrew Webster also said it wasn't just the trial, it's been his attitude and performances in preseason at training and things like that. And so he fully graduates the top 30. I think he's a player that they're going to try their best to keep on to. He showed a lot of promise, as I was saying to you and Ruin Hammer when we were chatting during the trial. Like it was he had a little bit of like Reece Walsh and Brent Webb in him, but I think the most impressive thing, he had a few good runs, but there was a moment where the Tigers broke the line and it was a one-on-one and he chopped the guy down, which if we had our former fullback, as much as I loved him when he was here, that would be a try to the Tigers. So, yeah, I think he's got a lot of promise and I think it's well-deserved. And I'm sure we'll get to see a bit more of him in first grade this year. He'll get an opportunity. Because, injuries and player role switches change. So I'm sure we'll see more of him to talk about, Richie, but what was your take on him?
it's funny that exact scenario you just said. I was watching the trial with my young fella, and we both looked at each other and said that would have been a try if that was Reece Walsh. But yeah, he looked elusive. You threw a couple of comparisons out there. I also saw people online sort of saying a little bit of Kevin Locke about him. You know, slight but elusive. Had a very good season last year too, and then the next year down. So yeah, I think it's great. He may get a chance this year to show his worth at NRL level, and I'm sure he wouldn't disgrace himself. I think he looks like he's got a lot of talent and would handle himself quite well. Nice to have
Definitely.
a bit of depth.
Yeah, I think we'll go on about it in the trial result, but I'm pretty confident that they might have a tough New South Wales Cup team. This year, the Warriors, they've got some good young talent that are just waiting for an opportunity, which is a great problem to have. It's great to have too many players that you want to fit into your team.
Do you see him getting a shot at NRL level? I mean, in terms of fullbacks, we've got like if you look at our depth chart, obviously I think Chance will be number one. Say Chance picks up an injury, do you think maybe Metcalf might come in next cab off the rank? Or
I think so. It all depends on what Webster and co are envisioning position-wise for Metcalf. If they're wanting Metcalf to basically just focus on being in the halves, it may be a time where Tane comes in before him. But personally, I would be using Metcalf first. He's actually played some first grade, not a lot because he signed with us early, so the Sharks didn't really want to use him. But yeah, it's like I said, it's a great problem to have. But yeah, he'll get it. He'll get his opportunity. It all depends on how the dominoes shift. You know, if you lose a half and Metcalf has to go into the halves, then you lose Chance, then he's automatically in just from those two little things happening. Obviously, I don't want any injuries to happen. But that's generally how some of these youngsters get a chance. But yeah, we talked about the Warriors a bit too much now, so we'll go on to our next favorite team, Richie, the Tigers. They signed John Bateman. We talked about it much of the end of last season when he was out saying there's no way I'm coming to the NRL. I'm very happy in Wigan. And then we said as soon as he's done that before with the Raiders, as soon as he comes out and says I'm definitely not, he is. So, he signed a 4-year deal with the Tigers, but he hasn't actually arrived in the country yet because he's having issues with his visa. So there are concerns that he won't be there for round one. But yeah, he signed, so he's getting paid regardless. So well done him. But what's your take on Bateman joining the Tigers? The Tigers, as much as we like to make fun of them, they've got a hell of a roster this year.
Yeah, it's building nicely. And Bateman would round out that pack really nicely, depending on how they use him. I've heard rumours they may use him in 13. I quite like him out on an edge. I think he's quite good out on an edge, runs good lines and tough as nails. But I think he'd be effective either way. But yeah, rounds the pack out nicely. And then the rest, then it'll just depend on what their halves can do off the back of that, whether now with a really good platform and a good dummy half, whether Luke Brooks can actually do something.
Yeah, imagine what they would have been like if they still had Jackson Hastings. But yeah, be interesting to see. I know a lot of people have already written them off after what happened in the trial, but a lot of their big names weren't playing. So I'm waiting till I see them there with Coruscant and Papali'i and all those guys out there. Then I want to get a bit of indication. I don't think they'll make the 8. We can save that kind of talk till next week in our predictions episode, but I think they'll do a lot better. But yeah, like Jacko said, they've got no depth. If they get some injuries, they're going to be in trouble. But that is what happens when you top load your roster with all your money spent on, the top 20 people. And yeah, Simon thinks they'll end up back in 9th where they belong. And
that'd be great.
Be great, yeah. But Raiders have also signed Danny Levi on a 2-year deal. Young, well, I shouldn't say young. He's been around a while. Young hooker that's kind of ran out of opportunities in the NRL, did a little trip overseas, and then the Raiders picked him up. I think it's a great pickup. He's a backup. He's not there to be in the starting lineup, but if you get an injury up front, which happens to Raiders hookers, I think he's a great hand to put in there.
Yeah, you think so? I'm kind of wait and see about it. It's the hooking role in Canberra is a bit of a funny one. They don't have Hodgson anymore, but they've got Starling there. Interesting to see what they do, but yeah, Danny Levy's kind of been a bit hit or miss the past couple of years. So hopefully the running game comes back, the explosive plays, and he has a nice run there. But yeah, wait and see for me.
Exactly. And the last two for signings, we've got Rabbitohs announced a double. They extended the tie contracts of Latrell Mitchell and Cody Walker. Mitchell's until the end of 2027. And Walker until the end of 2025. Kind of saw that coming. Bit surprised that Mitchell went for as long as he did for 2027, but he's a player the Rabbitohs really don't want to lose. He seems to be quite happy there. And Cody Walker, you can only give him to 2025 because he's a bit old. He may try to push on from 2025, but you could probably see in 2 years' time he may hang up the boots depending on how successful the Rabbitohs are. If they get a premiership in the next 2 years, he might hang up the boots. If they're still sitting where they are now, where they're near and nearabouts, he might try to push on a bit more. Mark Roberts said Levi has an attitude problem. That could be an issue with Sticky. We know Sticky doesn't like players of that nature. So that will be interesting to see, but he could also be a coach that straightens him out, and maybe his attitude might have got better now that he got, I don't want to say humbled as a guy who's never played first grade, but like humbled and gone overseas because no one in the NRL wanted him. Maybe that might have changed it. I don't know. But yeah, time will tell with that. And then your take on the Rabbitohs signings?
Yeah, not unexpected. I think, like you say, Latrell, I think he really enjoys the Rabbitohs environment. A little bit less on the contract in terms of years for Cody Walker, but like you say, he's a late bloomer and kicking on a bit in 40 years now. So, but I think those two love playing with each other, and when they team up in their back line, they create magic. So, should be another couple of years of good competing for top fours for the Rabbitohs, all going well.
Yeah, and then the last one, Stephen Crichton has become the latest Panther to join the Canterbury Bankstown Panthers, formerly known as the Bulldogs, signing a 4-year deal. What's your take on Crichton joining the Bulldogs, and how many more Panthers do you think are going to go? I know there's been rumours left, right and centre about all these other players coming. Do you think they're going to get to a point where they're just a team full of former Panthers?
Well, the rumours for Crichton were around for a while as well, and they came true. Looks like he might be going there to play fullback. Their team all of a sudden starts becoming pretty scary if Crichton goes there and performs well in the spine. But yeah, Gus Gould and Ciraldo pulling some Panthers players across. I mean, the way the Panthers have been going, can only be a good thing, can't it?
Yeah, well, I know a lot of people don't like the salary cap for that reason. Everyone saw it. I saw it and I didn't want to comment on it, but everyone watching obviously caught up on your slip of the tongue, Richie.
Get your minds out of the gutter.
It's what happens with a successful team. You can't afford to keep all your big stars. But that's where that depth comes in handy. We were talking about it in my house, where it's got an asterisk next to it because it's the Storm and they had some issues. But it's kind of a thing where the Storm had like 3 players that they must keep. It was Cronk, Smith, and Slater, and everyone else became stars, but they weren't signing stars. They were developing them. That's what you're going to see at the Panthers. The next ones up are going to be just as good. That could be a problem for the Bulldogs, where they're not, where we don't know what Gould and that are doing in the background in terms of their youth, but it just looks like they're bringing everybody in. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But hopefully Andrew Webster can talk a couple of Panthers maybe that are looking for fresher pastures to jump across the ditch.
Wouldn't say no.
Yeah. And last bit of news before we get into the All-Stars and trials, Jazz Tavunga is donating money and keeping his head shaved for the entire 2023 season in a bid to raise money for his friend and former junior warrior, Roman Tulmata, who's battling cancer. There's a Give a Little page set up that Jazz has got links to if you want to donate. It's a great cause. I've obviously done the opposite to Jazz, and my hair just keeps getting longer. But I'm sure sometime this year I'm going to end up cutting it off. I'll probably try to do it for a charity or something as an excuse, but I'll look into that later on as the year goes. See how long I can get away with it before the girlfriend tells me it has to go. But yeah, anything you want to add about the Jazz story?
Just it's a sad situation for young Roman. He's still only a young guy, and it's nice of Jazz and the guys to recognise him that way. And Jazz, I think what he's doing now is better than what he at first suggested. It's a bit more of a positive spin on it, but no, it's good.
So I'm just wondering, how much would we have to raise for you to get your haircut like this?
Wow.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. No. But yeah, it's going to be, it's a sad story, and hopefully he raises a lot of money. And yeah, I saw there was all that talk because he was doing it for, originally it was every penalty, every missed tackle, he was making money, raising money, and people were complaining online about, you don't really, it kind of incentivizes making mistakes. So we switched it. I haven't got the rundown of what it is now, but it's like a certain amount for scoring a try and things like that. And either way, I didn't really mind. It was for a good cause. And he's not the kind of guy that's going to go out there and go, I'm going to miss 50 tackles today so I can make some money for my mate. But switching it to positive stats,
it's
probably good. It's a better look for the club, I guess. But yeah, hopefully they raise heaps of money. So we may as well jump in. So Mark said too much money because that reminds us of the Roosters. Yeah, exactly. It'd have to be a lot of money to make me have a Roosters haircut. But we'll jump into the matches now, Richie. We'll start with the All-Stars first. We had the women Māori defeat the Indigenous All-Stars 16-12, and then the Indigenous men defeat the Māori men 28-24. What's your take on both games? Originally, I had planned to go, and then I've got to currently find a new place to live, so money was being used elsewhere. So I didn't get to go, but I watched it from home. I assume you did too. You didn't make the trip up from Wellington?
I did not, mate. Truth be told, I was out and about, so I actually missed the women's one. So you may need. Yep, I know. First opportunity at rugby league this year, and dropped the ball.
You just missed it.
So you can fill us in about that one. I caught the men's game, and I thought it was quite a high quality game for early in the season. A lot of players out, obviously, which maybe diluted. I thought might dilute it a bit, but I thought the Māori team did a lot better than I thought they might. Just looking at their spine and everything, it looked a lot less stacked than what the Indigenous spine was with Hines and Cody Walker, Latrell. But yeah, I think for the Māori to lead a lot of the game, and then Indigenous pulled out a little bit. Hat-trick through Selwyn Cobbo, who actually started the game pretty poorly, but came back nice. I thought for the Māori to score late and be in with a chance at the end, they did better than what I thought they would, put it that way. And I thought the game was an entertaining game.
Yeah. Well, see, Cobbo started the game remembering all the stuff from that bad coach he's got, and then he remembered from the good coach he had in the Indigenous team how to play, and that's why he improved.
Did you see Kevin Walters' little quip about that?
Yes.
That was quite good, wasn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, the women's game was great, as it always is. And they also had players that you usually expect to see not there. But it was just a tight battle. I really liked that there weren't blowouts in either game. I think the Māori boys probably would have won again if they had their full roster, because they're quite dangerous. But yeah, the Indigenous had quite a few players pull out too. But you kind of said, Cody Walker, Latrell, and Hines as your spine. That's a pretty lethal spine. That, dare I say, that could even be Kangaroos level spine type deal if you forget about Cleary for a second. But yeah, they were both great games. Great to see everyone in Rotorua have a good time. Simon was there. A few pitch invaders, which were the first smart ones I've seen in a while, because they went out together. A lot harder to stop you when there's like 7 of you at once. Things like that. But the Indigenous boys, before and after the game, they were talking a lot about how much of the culture they felt being in Rotorua and being in New Zealand compared to being at home. I can't speak for it. I'm not over in Australia. But how they said there was a lot of Māori words on signs and things like that. It may have helped that they were in Rotorua for that stuff as well. But just great to see them. And they want, Simon said by count there were at least 10, but they were all caught in the pitch invaders. But yeah, it's strengthened. The Indigenous players want to make it a biannual event. So like in Australia 1 year, in New Zealand next, which I think would be great. It's how it should always have been done, in my opinion. But yeah, just great to see. And I know some people don't like this concept. They like seeing like the all-stars being like the best players in the NRL playing against each other. But I prefer this one. I feel there's more intent in delivering a good performance in this one, because they're playing for their culture, as opposed to a Warrior that's pairing up in the centres with a Storm player that have never played together. But yeah, like Simon said, I think, if they move the venue around in New Zealand, I think every year, if you did it like Rotorua, do it in Wellington, or take it to the smaller ones if you want. So you go to like Taranaki and things like that. Just move it around, go up north, play it at Northland and Whangarei. Places like that, I think would be great. But they were both great games. I didn't take any notes because I'm still on holiday from the NRL season. But it was a great kickoff to kind of get the juices flowing again for the NRL. And makes it a bit more exciting for when round one comes around. Any more takes on that before we move on to the game we always want to talk about?
No, let's move on to the game we want to talk about.
All right, so the official first game, because it was on Thursday, was the Warriors defeating the Tigers 48-12. It was a members-only home game, so you could only go if you had a season ticket. I was there, obviously. Great game. It was, I think, like I said to you and Paul before we went on air, the majority of the team I didn't know. Like there were some names that looked familiar because maybe I'd seen them in a reserve grade game or things like that, or just due to their lineage. Like Ackland's son, I haven't seen play before, but I've heard of him. But and Paul said, good to see the house hunting costs haven't stopped the season ticket. I've been paying off my season ticket since last year. It's a good idea to encourage people to buy season tickets if they wanted to go to the trial. There was a good turnout. There was quite a few people. They had us all sitting in the east stand. They had closed off the west stand, which is where I normally sit. I got to stare across the field at one of the Warriors players deciding to sit in my season ticket seat. That's where all the players that weren't playing, like Curran and Johnson and all that, were sitting in that area. Richie. But yeah, it was a great game. I know a lot of people are very excited that they almost scored 50 points and, booking grand final tickets. It is just a trial, but what I was encouraged in is the amount of young players that were playing that were actually impressive. They were playing like for like, so it may have been different if they were playing a full strength team, but it's good to see that they were they all play together well. Like Jacko said, they looked and felt organized, which they haven't been for years. Yeah, they looked like they had a game plan that everyone knew. And when you took a player out and threw another one in, it still stayed the same. It wasn't like we've been seeing where you take a couple of players out and the whole momentum swings and the Warriors look completely different. Helps they also don't have a fullback that has his own playbook. But yeah, it was great to see. And there's a lot of talent in there, which are ones that you're penciling down going, the Warriors need to keep this kid here and this kid here. And it's like there's a lot of them. Obviously, they probably will lose a few. That's the nature of the NRL where you can't keep every player. But I'm hoping they've got a few players that they've kept their eye on. What's his name? He was number 14.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I can't remember. He looked like a beast.
I am just cheating and going to the website. While I'm doing that, we had like Bunty was captain. He played quite well. Tom Ali
was good.
Yeah, he was really good. Montoya looked great on the wing. Willie, how do you say his name? Willie Army.
Brad and Richie.
Yeah, the player that we were making fun of when he got signed last year.
He was making fun of. He was good.
Yeah, he looked really good and actually has prevented me from filling my center spot on my game day 17 for my season preview that I'm currently writing, because I want to see how he goes this week against the Storm on if I say I want him to be in my centers or not.
So Pompey's still a chance for you?
No. No. 14, Zion.
That's
yeah.
Yes.
He looked like he came on and was running with gusto. Jacko also said Jackson Ford, yet another player we made fun of for signing.
Good lines.
Yeah, playing good lines. But yeah, the center he had 3 try assists. Looked good on defense. Valia looked really good. There wasn't anyone that I went, oh, they weren't that good. But that's probably because Adam Pompey wasn't playing. But yeah, Luke Metcalf looked great as well. Tamari Martin, he was a bit rocky at the start. A few of his little kicks weren't as good, but as he got into the groove, he was working really nice. I think him and Sean will pair nicely. I know a lot of people have already said Sean needs to be dropped and we'll just keep these halves, but Sean hasn't played yet. And I think seeing how good these younger guys are should, in theory, make you should see the best out of Sean, because he is in actual position to lose a spot because there are other players. So hopefully that sees the best out of him. We were right before round 1, so my positivity as a Warriors fan's quite up there. But yeah, it was a good hit out. All the players played really well. Jacob Laban, who's still really young, he looked really good out there.
Tough defense on him.
Yeah. Very and like Jacko said, Metcalf looked good, but the Tigers were awful. Yeah. Charlie Staines had the night to forget. I know everyone's showing him getting run over by Montoya, but there were defensive misreads, drop balls. There was one, Valia, one of his tries where it was like a misread pass, and Staines didn't even try to chase. He just watched the ball and watched Valia pick it up and run. And as poor Charlie, after that 4-try debut, he's kind of fallen away a bit, but hopefully he finds something here. It's not going to be him starting at fullback for the Tigers. It's going to be Dane, but the Tigers, I don't want to judge them too much yet, because they got Coruscant. I was going to say Hastings ain't there no more. Brooks, Papali'i, they got all those guys coming in. Doesn't mean they're going to be amazing, but they should be better than what they showed here. But yeah, any more takes on that before I rattle off all the other games?
Yes, Staines not a full day. I think that game showed it. He's a winger that has lived a blessed life on the end of a Panthers backline up until now. But yeah, I mirror a lot of your thoughts, mate. The halves looked exciting. I would still put Sean there to start off the season. I think he's earned that. Rubbish me if you want to, people watching, but I think he's earned another shot as someone who's stuck around the club and loves the club. And he's, by all accounts, the fittest he's been in a while. He's got a set of abs on him, so that's got to count for something, right? I love the scoreline because it's been a long time since we've run up a score like that. So I enjoy that a lot, but I take it for what it was as well. It's a trial. It's the Tigers' probably third or fourth string side. But yeah, positives, a lot of positives.
Yeah, definitely.
I take it, like I say, I take it with a pinch of salt because we beat the Storm in preseason last year, and then 2 months later they put 70 on us. So there you go. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, some promise from the depth, which is why I said earlier I think the New South Wales Cup team could be dangerous. And yeah, Jacko said SJ looked really relaxed and happy in the stands. Best frame one. Yeah, he looks in great nick. And I think the only way, how you said he deserves that spot, I think the only way he doesn't is if he has the worst game of his life in the trial against the Storm this week. If it just looks like he is not cutting the mustard, that's the only way I see it not happening. But I think, I think he deserves a shot.
Yeah.
If it's not working, you've got others that you can throw in there. But yeah, should be good. We'll rattle off the rest of the games. I'm sure. How many of the other games did you watch?
The Dragons, St. Helens, and Broncos, Titans, and then I just caught highlights of all the other ones.
That's great that you're getting into the season nice and early by watching nothing.
Nice and slow.
So the other trials, we had the Sharks defeat the Knights 28-16, Seals defeat the Rabbitohs 30-28, Panthers defeat Eels 22-16, St. Helens defeated the Dragons 30-18, Roosters defeated Storm 32-24, Bulldogs defeated Raiders 34-18, and then we had two draws, Cowboys and Dolphins going 22-all, and Broncos Titans going 24-all.
See, Queenslanders don't know how to win.
Yeah. That's I said no Queensland team won this week. I watched most of these games except for the Dragons St. Helens. I watched like a bit of it, and then I was like, I don't like St. Helens and I don't like the Dragons. I'm not watching. So I stopped. But yeah, now overall,
you didn't watch it for Connie Harrell?
Connie was looking a bit bigger than I remember.
Yeah. Ignatius Passy is looking good.
Yeah. But there was some good moments in all the games. It's hard to take anything off it, as we already said with the trials. I thought the Roosters looked dangerous. Brandon Smith was getting into a bit of niggle with his former teammates, but he looked really dynamic with them. Nick's asked what we thought on Reece Walsh's performance. I thought he played as good as I expected. He had a really good game. He also had a few negatives in there, and he got hurt. So he kind of ticked all the boxes of Reece Walsh, where he'll give you some great moments, he'll make some mistakes, and he'll get hurt. It is the trifecta. I loved the kid when he was with the Warriors, but when he's decided to leave, I was able to look a bit more honestly at his performances, and I personally feel the Warriors have won in the deal of letting him go. I think you look at Tamari Martin and Tane as your two options that could go into fullback if Chance is gone. I think they still win. And I still feel like Reece Walsh is just an off-field incident away from not playing in the NRL anymore. But he's a hell of a talent. I think I said it in one of my league writing chats saying Got all the talent in the world, but he's a moron everywhere else.
It's like a ex-girlfriend that's dumped you, eh, Brad?
Yeah,
Kind of don't want anything to do with them anymore.
Exactly.
Hope their next relationship
falls apart.
falls
No,
apart.
the worst.
His tune since he's left about the guy changed dramatically.
Yeah.
He was the he was
what did I used to
godlike,
call him?
godlike player who's going to carry the Warriors to the championship, and now he's he's
dead to me.
waiting to
He's
happen.
dead to me, Paul.
He was the great hope.
Yeah, I did have a name for him, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's fantastic. He's got all the talent in the world. He's just it's more the top 2 inches and growing up a bit more off the field. I think if he can do that, if he can grow up a little bit and mature, which he's a kid. But yeah, if he can do that, he's the sky's the limit with him. Being honest, it's just he does have some parts of his game that he needs to work on. Talent can get you so far, but things like defense, it's cliche, but it's a lot more attitude based than skill based. And that's where he falls apart. Every team knows, just get into a one-on-one situation with him and odds are you're going to win that battle. So I'm looking forward to when we play the Broncos, because I'm sure there's like Bunties and Marcelos and all that are going to have a field day running at him. But still a great performance from him. But now it looks like he might not even be there for round 1. Because he's injured. But yeah, other than that, I thought all the games were quite entertaining. This week's the one where we can probably take a better look at how the teams are going to go, which will flow into our prediction week quite nicely, because we'll see a lot more of the big names back. But any more takes on that before we forget about the trials? All right, I suppose we should talk about what's your take on the point system that they're doing for the trials.
Q&A section. Jeez, what are you talking about? Hang on.
That's next. Hold on, Paul. Just relax.
This is one of our questions. What do you think of the points tally system?
We'll save it.
Okay, we'll save it. We'll save it for then. Sorry for stepping. We'll talk about the next trials, Paul. I gave you a picture.
No, we'll do Q&A and then we preview, right?
Okay, we'll do the preview then. Fine.
So right, here we go. Answer the question. You're about to talk about
Answer the question.
Reformatting it. I can cut that bit out now for the podcast, which people who listen to the podcast now I never do anyway, so don't worry. It'll be in.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the points tally system for the pre-season competition challenge?
Yeah, so what's your take on it, Richie?
I think it's fantastic because we're in the top 4.
No,
it's weird. It's weird how you get. What do you get? Like 12 or 14 points for a win?
The maximum points you can get is 15.
15.
We, as the Warriors, got 14. So despite having the best points differential and putting on the most amount of points, we are sitting 3rd compared to a team that won by 2 and a team that won by 8.
Don't you get a bonus point for a certain amount of line breaks, a certain amount of?
It's you get a point. You get a certain amount of points for winning, a certain amount of points for getting 5 line breaks, points for 5 offloads, and there's something else. I'm sure. I'm trying to find it as we go.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff's weird to me. I mean, why are you trying to incentivize line breaks? Aren't you trying to get line breaks all game anyway? I don't know.
So there it is. So yes,
cool.
Win, draw, loss, points, and maximum points bonus. So line breaks and offloads.
Yeah. So I think the Warriors missed out on the offloads one, and that's why they didn't get 15.
Yeah.
But it was hard for them to get offloads because they were just breaking the line all the time.
Yeah.
And
once you get your 5 line breaks, you start offloading it after you've broken the line.
They were working on actually playing well instead of trying to get points for a competition. But the winner of it in the end gets 100K.
Yeah.
Which is great. But I could take it or leave it. I don't mind. I don't mind the idea, but it doesn't matter. But then we are sitting in a point where we could win 100K. If we were the Tigers sitting at the bottom, I might be like, it's rubbish. I don't care.
Your priority's still going to lie with preparing well for the season and getting combinations, isn't it?
Yeah. But
with hopefully no injuries.
It might incentivize teams to actually use a few more of the big names, maybe, which makes it more enjoyable for fans to watch, I guess. But then, like I said, I just watched a team with like 3 or 4 guys I knew in a trial, and I enjoyed every moment of it. But yeah, Jacko said preseason comp's ridiculous. I could take it or leave it. I don't mind as long as there's 2 preseason trials for the Warriors to work on things. I'm happy. But yeah, I could take it or leave it. But
depends on how that 100K is used, right? If the 100K is used goes directly to the players who are playing, then it gives them a bit more of an incentive to play well, right? And you can say that's outside the salary cap. It's extra bonuses. You'd have to worry that then it's fine. If it's being used, this goes somewhere randomly into the club's coffers, then
it goes into the kitty for Mad Monday. But yeah, it's
if you look at that table then we think about how teams went last year. Obviously, the Warriors much higher up than last year. Any other sort of teams? I mean, Saints are in there, which is kind of a bit of fun to have the team over from the UK. Do you think that's added anything, having a UK team come over for pre-season?
Well, they needed it just because they've got an uneven amount of teams. But it's good to see them back for what's happening this week, which is the World Club Challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good that they at least got a game. They played the Dragons. So they kind of get a warm-up before they're playing the Panthers. Coming in cold after like a break, it's probably not the game you want to be playing. So I don't mind in that way. Letting the UK team come down and have more than one game, I think is good. I felt like an idiot because I took weeks before I figured out why they decided to have them play the Dragons. It's like, of all teams, why pick the Dragons? But it's the Saints versus Saints. And I felt like an absolute moron. It's so obvious. But yeah, I don't mind it. Like Simon said, he wants to judge it after it's finished. Yeah, I don't mind the idea of the competition. The bonus point thing, I think, is what's throwing everybody through a loop. I feel like there would have been easier ways to do it. Like you look at Super Rugby, how they do their points. If you score 4 or more tries, you get a point. If you lose within 7, you get a point type deal, and that's it.
I think what it is good for is that you can trial those sort of things without having to worry about it having any really mattering, right?
Yeah.
You can go, actually, you know what, that was actually a crap idea, or that was a good idea. We'll keep it next year, or we might bring it through to a proper competition, like say New South Wales League competition, and then bring it up to the NRL the year after, or something like that. So it could be it's useful for that, but yeah, I mean, most of it is it's an irrelevant thing that's just a bit of fun. And from that point of view,
yeah. And Simon says there, he's guessing you're not supportive of introducing the bonus point system in the regular season. I'm not. I don't like it in rugby. I don't like awarding points for losing. It's a very rugby union kind of mentality. They like trying to let everyone win in rugby union.
Don't go woke.
But there's been times though where I wish we had it. There were a few years, Richie, where the Warriors were always in the games and they were losing by like 4 every week. And it's like we would be in the 8 right now if we got that 1 point for losing within an unconverted try. So it depends on the situation. If it helps the Warriors, I'm all for it.
But then other teams would probably be in the same situation as well. I think this weird bonus point system for this preseason comp is just for that bonus point.
They'll never bring that in.
It's just for a condensed couple of week sort of preseason, rather than it would never work in a fully fledged round robin. They'd
have to for 2 games to sort out who's the best and who's the worst. You need these extra points to make it, so that's why it's in there. But yeah, I don't know. But were there any other questions on your side before I go through our list here, Paul?
Yep. So Ken Rogers, guys, what your thoughts on our SG ball props? Over to you, Richie, on the names.
I honestly, Caden, probably not enough context. I only got the chance to see this SG. Obviously, we haven't had an SG ball side, and now we've got one together for this year. And I saw, because they streamed it, the game against the Rabbitohs.
on
but
YouTube.
I can't say, but I can't say I've seen enough of these two lads to.
I need a bit more.
I need a bit more context. Watch a few more games. But I thought the team looked pretty good. Defensively, they were very good. They held the Rabbitohs to, I think it was only 8 points they got. So
it was, and they didn't get to play last week because there was a little storm, and the team couldn't get into the country. The Australian team they were playing, so it got delayed. But from what I've seen, they look good. It's still that same mentality that the Warriors have always seemed to get, where everyone's like, well, wait till the last 20 and they're going to tuck her out. They're too big. And that was kind of looking like what was going to happen because it was a hot day. The Rabbitohs were being relentless, but their defense held up. Adam Blair looked really excited. Seems to be getting a lot out of these young kids. I think we need a few more games before we can start highlighting individuals. But there were a few players in there that I thought were quite impressive. But I'm sure once we get a few more games, though, Caden, we'll be able to give a bit more of a better opinion. But if they're a prop, I'm going to love them. So it's hard to say.
I think he's trolling us anyway when you look at those names, because one of them was "I really need a poo poo." Yeah.
But yes, there you go.
Yeah.
The regular season, he thinks when you get to Golden Point, at least you should get 1 point if you're drawing at the end of regular time. So I understand that side of things for that one. Go work, go broke. Yeah, that's why all the companies are going woke, because you know what? They actually make more money. They would go broke if they don't go woke. Jeez, stupid comment. And then Nicholas wants to know, what are your top 3 favorite Warrior jerseys of all time?
I would go 2002, the black with the blue and the red. The original 95 jersey, away jersey. I remember watching Ruin Hammer did a special on jerseys, and I'm a bit like Rue. He quite likes the white away jerseys, and the 95, 96 away jerseys I think are quite nice. I quite like the black and grey one too from the 2007, 2008 seasons. Sort of makes me think of Ruben Wiki and
I've got the same first two as you. 2002, the first grand final year. That's my favorite. It's the one I was never able to get because my parents didn't love me. But that one, the original 95 jersey, nostalgia. I like the color scheme. And then for shits and giggles, I'll throw in my favorite behind me, who isn't on the wall anymore, but my yellow picnic blanket. I love it for the controversy because everyone hates it. So I will take it. But yeah, there's so many. There's more that I love than more that I dislike.
Yeah.
I'll say that much.
Well, even these sort of red versions, which are kind of.
I personally don't like the red ones. I don't like the red ones as much. But yeah, they're not as bad. Like that top left one, the Super League one, I actually do like as well. But yeah, it's hard to dislike any of them, really, to be honest.
There you go. And that's those are our questions from the live chat. So any a draw should be a draw on a lottery to go to Golden Point is Jacko's point there. Simon mentions the brown jerseys.
Yep, I think I know the one he's talking about. It's quite nice.
The greenstone jersey as well.
Yeah,
quite like.
I like the power jersey they use for the Nines too. And there was that one, I never got it, but it was an interesting concept. It was like the white one, and they had like stylized drawings of all the team's logos.
Yes,
all over it. I really like that one too, just for a looking at point of view.
Was that a training jersey? Or was it a Nines one? I can't remember.
I think that was a Nines one.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think it was a Nines one. But yeah, that one was quite cool too. But yeah, cheers for that. We do have some questions here that I got in the chats prior to the show. So the first one was from Michael Fuller. He said, what can be done to the cap to even up the squads to avoid quality players being signed for unders so they can play for the likes of the Roosters? It's an interesting question because I don't think there's anything you can do.
I was just going to say that too.
I feel like the only way you're going to get a player to sign for unders is if you're either cheating or you're a successful team that players will do anything to play for. So your Roosters, your Panthers, right now, I feel like a player will take less money to stay with the Panthers. Doesn't seem to be the case unless it's the Bulldogs asking. But yeah, it's a hard thing to do because the better your club is, the cheaper you can get players. It's just how it is in a lot of sports. If people are after success and not necessarily lots and lots of money, they'll go to a team where they know they have a better chance of winning, which has a flow-on effect. If you win championships, you can then go to another club for a lot more money. Look at James Maloney. He came here for nothing, and then his money just kept going up because he kept winning championships everywhere but here. But yeah, so I don't really know if there's anything to do there. Simon also said it's hard to do with the salary cap. The only thing you couldn't require clubs is they have a minimum spend. It could come to a level where you have a value, like the NRL dictates a value of a player. So say like Latrell Mitchell, they go, Latrell Mitchell is a 900 a year player. He can't sign for the Rabbitohs on 700 a year. That type of thing. But then, that's the only thing, I guess, where you make, that's the jersey. Thanks. That's probably the only way you could do it, where the NRL dictates a player's value, maybe. So you have it doesn't mean you have to pay them that, but that's the baseline. So if it's a 500 a year, you might give them 6. But you can't give them 4. I don't know.
Or you do some sort of auction thing where the other teams are allowed to sort of bid to try and buy a player, which might be that might be kind of interesting. A bit like the IPL has a kind of auction. They auction the players off, don't they? So you could perhaps auction some. When you become a free agent, you can put you have to go towards, or you can go towards a some sort of auction house would be one way of doing it.
Yeah, the players are the biggest issue with that, though, Paul. Because they talk about drafts and stuff. The NRL players have a lot more control of their careers than other professional sports. They basically they don't want to be in a situation where a club says, like, you're going to the Warriors now because the Warriors have offered us this, and you don't have a say. You just go. That's like how it is in America and in the UK and things like that, with like soccer and American football and NBA. The NRL players have basically said no.
No, in football you can turn down you have to agree a contract plus the transfer on that one. I come from Millie here. 2 questions. How did you first get into rugby league? Brad, was it running over boys in the Hauraki Plains? It's not really rugby league.
No, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to play rugby league in the Hauraki Plains. I even got reprimanded by my first 15 coach for wearing a Warriors jersey to training. Say, get that rubbish off. That's a stupid sport. It was my grandmother who, if she's figured out how internet works, she may be watching. I'm not sure. Her and my granddad were big leagueies. So when I was a little kid, I'd be watching rugby league with them. It's how I got into Wigan. My granddad used to watch a lot of Wigan. And then when the Warriors started up, I would go down to the Cosy Club in Manureal with my nana, hop on a bus and go to games with her up until a point where she couldn't really go anymore. And then basically that's where it was. It was really only them. My dad and that don't like league. They won't even watch this, hearing me talk about it. So that's how I got into it, through my grandparents who were league nuts, and then I just kind of took it to another level.
Richie, how did you get into league?
So I spent a lot of time as a young fella watching what my dad watched, and he was a sports nut that would watch all sorts of sports, but league was kind of a love at first sight kind of thing. I still remember as a young guy, maybe 5 years old, and they would show the odd game free to air. I don't want to out myself, but I did have a old Cronulla Sharks T-shirt and a Balmain Tigers T-shirt. This was pre-Warriors, obviously, so cut me a bit of slack. But just the older I got and the more I watched, and discovering State of Origin in the early 90s was a fantastic product, brutal product. And then the Warriors came along, and that was that.
So all from there. Then very quickly, what is for an Aussie coming over here? Give me one must-see thing, one must-see thing in New Zealand. We're turning into a travel show now.
Mount Smart Stadium.
Mount Smart Stadium, obviously.
Mount Smart. Depends what you're into, Millie. But if you're
come on.
If you're outdoorsy and like a bit of adventure, then a lot of nice places in South Island, Queenstown, and places like that. I'm quite biased, but I like Wellington. It's got a good pub and cafe culture.
Millie, what you'll find is anyone in the North Island will suggest you go to the South Island. There's, for some reason, North
There's
Island.
nothing in the North Island. We've got nothing.
Pyro and go see the LMP bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see Simon mentioned he got into it with the Manura Club with the Stepmother's Restaurant. We should probably mention that we were probably born to only like league because we come from Manurewa, and they got the greatest league club in the country. If you're not a fan of the Marlins, you're not a league fan, but yeah, that's it. So next one was from Andrew JP. He said, "Can you see the Auckland Nines returning or a brand new short form of the footy?" I'd love to see the Nines come back. I don't know if they'll give it to Auckland again because the NRL just hates New Zealand. But yeah, I'd love to see the Nines back. I liked the concept, and it's probably especially more now that Sean's back with the club because it's kind of designed to be his kind of thing. And I just look at a lot of the players you've got now. There's a lot of players that would be electrifying in Nines. And yeah, I know we're going over an hour, Paul, but it's our 100th. We're going long.
I'm just wondering why Richie's. You clearly left it open for him to talk about Nines, and you just sort of stood there gazing at his camera in silence.
He was reading the text.
I could see Brad reading. I could see his brain ticking over. I was wondering what he's doing.
But yeah, Nines, Richie, yeah or nay?
I like it. Do I see it returning? I don't know. Maybe now that COVID's all done and dusted and the world's kind of getting back to normal, I don't see it back in Auckland, but I'd still watch it if it was in Queensland or wherever.
Yeah, I think it's a model you could take the Sevens model because they're kind of stealing the Sevens model anyway, but every year do it in a different area. Because it's all teams going to that one location anyway. So just, if it's in Auckland this year, it's in Queensland next year, then it's in Sydney, then Melbourne, Canberra, wherever you want to go. Simon said Super League starting this weekend too, but St. Helens is busy. I haven't even looked at Super League. I need to look at that so we're prepared next week. But then basically after those questions, we just got bombarded with questions from Ruin Hammer since they weren't going to be able to join us tonight. So some of them are directed just at me. So I'll go with that one first because it's quick, but you can throw your sense in. I know you won't have the correct answers, but Rue has asked me my top 5 props of all time. Now, before I get criticized for my selections, just want to say I don't pick my I pick my props on who I like, not on if they're like the best in the world or not. It's very Warriors skewed too. But number 1 is still my boy Paliasina, my favorite player of all time. Mark Tukey I picked as well. Similar reasons. I love the guy. Fui Moi Moi was another player I really loved. We kind of got a theme with their running styles with some of these guys. Petro 7 cents a litre, old Petro. He's in there. I think he's one of the best props in my generation of being able to watch. And then last was Steve Price for the same reasons. Steve Price, I just love to bits too. There's so many. I could have put 20 or 30 down, probably all Warriors players, but those are my 5. Do you have any?
Do you want me to know? I won't say they're the best of all time, but I'll say they're 5 that I enjoyed watching. There you go.
Yeah.
Price is a must for me. Love the man. I'm going to show my age and my era here by saying Paul the Chief Harrigan, Mark Carroll. I also like 7 cents a litre, and Mark O'Mealy, the ogre. Loved watching him play. So
I had a few others. Harrigan was close. Wayman, just due to the fact that we looked alike back when he was playing. And yeah, there was a few others, but yeah, great there. Next one was also from Rue for both of us. Best game you've ever been to live?
I think we're probably going to have the same answer here.
Probably.
What was yours?
Hold up. Millie just asked that. What's your thoughts on Shane Webke? Webke just missed out on my list. It was between him and Price, and I went with Warriors. Webke was, the standard as a front rower for years. Yep. So loved him to bits. My favorite game, I had 2, but the main one is the blackout match.
Yeah.
Warriors versus Roosters at Mount Smart finals. We obviously were there. Ruben Wiki, his big barnstorming run. But I also had the Tonga England semi-final at the World Cup at Mount Smart as well. I don't have a horse in the race, but just the atmosphere being, filled to the brim with Tongan fans. I've never been closest I've been to it is in America going to a New York Giants game where there was like 100,000 people. There wasn't anywhere near that many at Mount Smart, but it felt the same. It was crazy. But yeah, blackout match was the same. Everyone.
That was my answer as well. That was my answer. I knew we'd have the same one there. No honourable mention for the return game last year for you?
No. It was too emotional.
Okay, fair enough.
There was too many emotions to really take it in. Last one from Rue before we get into hammers. Bit nerdy, so we might lose a few people here, but it fits right in with me. If you could get Doctor Strange to open a portal and bring back any warrior from any time, who would it be? It's easy for me. Again, it's Palliacina. Like I said, he's my favorite. All we're talking about at the moment with the Warriors is it feels like they're missing a prop. So, bada boom, we bring Palliacina in, and it's done. What about you? If you could have any warrior from any time period back?
Okay, so the obvious answer is Stacey Jones. So I'm going to steer away from the obvious answer. Prime Ali Lauatiti on the left edge.
Yep. Because we need another second rower, Richie.
But he was special, man. He was special. He was
special.
the original offloader before Sonny Bill.
Yeah, and Millie replied saying, the number one game for her was that blackout as well. The reception the Roosters got. Yeah, it was great. Now we're on to Hammer's questions. He tried to make us think a bit more. His first one was, who of our new recruits this season do you think will have the biggest impact? You go first on this one.
That's a tough one. Because it could potentially be someone like Metcalf if he was going to get a lot of minutes, but can you see him actually getting a lot of minutes? I'm not so sure.
So first episode of 2023 and you're already sitting on the fence. It's good.
To Marty Martin, potentially Chan's coming back. I'll put my neck out there and say Chan's coming back to where he belongs. Could also be Dylan Walker off the bench as a 14, but I'll say Chan's.
So you're picking every recruit.
I am. We'll play it safe.
All right. You as normal, you picked the wrong answer, but I'm going with Mitch Barnett. I feel like he's gonna have a Kevin Campion type. What's the right word to say? I feel like he's gonna give the team a bit more of an edge, like Campion did. They kind of got a bit tougher with that's my mentality. He's a bit of a thug, which should give me plenty to talk about this year. Thank goodness. But yeah, I've gone with Mitch Barnett. I just think, all the rest, like you said, it could be any of them, but I think he will give them a hard edge, which they're going to need, especially with Jazz injured at the moment too.
Yeah.
Next one, Hammer is a bit of a long one. He said, speaking of recruits, aside from Steve Price, Ruben Wiki, Michael Luck, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and Tohu Harris, who are the 5 best recruits the Warriors have had? I'll take this one first while you think if you want, because I've already written my list.
All right.
So there are no order. It's a bit hard because you took a lot of them out, but I've got Kevin Campion.
Yeah.
James Maloney.
Yeah.
Brent Webb.
Yeah.
Nathan Feen. And Ryan Hoffman.
Oh, okay. I would definitely. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say Maloney, Campion. Who else did you say? Did you say Santi?
No, I put Webb, Feen, and Hoffman.
It was Webb. Yeah, so I'd definitely say Maloney, Campion, and Webb. I think Webb for a guy that was probably unknown before coming here, and then we turned him into a Kiwi. He became a Kiwi.
Exactly.
How good. Then I'm surprised you didn't say Villasanti because he's a prop, but I love Villasanti as a recruit. Coming over. I think he was he our first player on? He may not have been the first Warrior to play State of Origin. While he was in our squad.
I think he was the first Warrior to make the Kangaroos.
Was it?
Yeah, from the Warriors, not one that had already played for Kangaroos before coming here. He was the first Australian to represent Australia after being with the club.
And speaking of thugs, he would just whack people. Loved it. So Villasanti, Wade McKinnon, love Wade McKinnon.
Yeah, he was
Campion
close.
And Maloney. Yeah, Campion and Maloney.
Yeah. And then the last one is a bit of a cheap plug for him, I guess. But he said, aside from your own, what is your favorite other webcast/podcast to listen to, and why is it Ruin Hammer? Why do you even listen to Ruin Hammer unless we're on it, or what? What do you do?
No, I do. I'm not even.
Really
probably not even on. Right?
You're kind of there and then. You don't actually have to go listen to it if you're on it.
I think they're probably on their show right now, so they're probably not listening. So I'm not smooching their asses, but
they're going to watch back the replay. They did say.
Yeah, I do enjoy Ruin Hammer, but I also Bloke in a Bar and Rugby League Guru. I feel like we've answered this.
We have.
Season, maybe.
I think
Rugby League Guru, Bloke in a Bar. There's also a bunch of other non-rugby league ones. Paul, I like you, the Driving Mall that you go. I'll plug you as well. I really like your one. And
I love your show too.
I don't listen to any of Paul's shows unless I'm in them.
And What a Lad is another union one I listen to by James Marshall. But I could go on. I love podcasts.
Yeah, I think you get that thing on Spotify where it tells you your stats for the year. I think it said last year I listened to 5 songs and I listened to 300 hours or something of podcasts. It's all I do. But sport ones, it's, Ruin Hammer, Hold the Ball, This Warriors Life, Warriors Anonymous, Warriors Fanatics, getting all the Warriors ones out of the way. Bloke in a Bar as well. Guru, but they kind of merged together now anyway.
They are, yeah.
Non-sport, I listen to everything. Fiona said This Warriors Life. Yeah, This Warriors Life, I feel like is the only Warriors podcast I haven't been on. If you guys are listening, I'm trying to get on everyone. But I listen to all sorts movie podcasts and everything like that as well. True crime, everything. If there's media, I'm going to listen. Simon said, the Canberra Raiders pod. I can't remember the name of it. Blake and the Pork. There's so many good podcasts out there for Rugby League. I don't try to listen to a lot of them before our show. I try to do it after our show so I don't just steal someone else's, thoughts on a game. So I listen to a lot of them on a Thursday, Friday when the game's, long gone. But there's a lot of good talent out there. It's great to see. It would go on for hours about, how the media world's changing with, sport in general. But that was all we had for questions. Were there any others, Paul, before before we go?
No, but that's fair go and the League Freak. There from Simon. There's a couple of other podcasts there. So no, so I guess you can start previewing or your 20 minutes you've got left.
Oh, we're not going to do predictions on this one anyway because they don't really matter. But yeah, the trials, we've got Knights versus Eels, Roosters versus Sea Eagles on Friday. Then we've got a big day on Saturday. We've got the Dragons, Rabbitohs in the Charity Shield, Panthers, St. Helens in the World Club Challenge, and then Broncos, Cowboys. And then on Sunday, we've got Warriors, Storm, Tigers, Raiders, Bulldogs, Sharks, and Dolphins, Titans. Quite a few interesting games in there, Richie. Obviously, you've probably got the Warriors, Storm earmarked in.
Yep.
For me, it's the Warriors, Storm because I'm a Warriors fan. Charity Shield's always a good watch.
Yeah.
And the World Club Challenge is always going to be interesting too. So those are the three I'm going to definitely be watching all of. And I'll do my best to watch all of them anyway. But it should be a good week, and we're 1 week closer to the season starting, which is good.
Yeah, can't wait.
So cheers for that, Paul. Next week we get rid of all the celebrations of being 100 episodes old, but we're going to do our annual prediction show, selecting things such as our top 8, our minor premiers, wooden spooners, and many more. We'll use just the same list we did last year, Richie. I'll resend it to you so you remember. And then we'll also be going over those last trial matches. And it should be a good night. And hopefully I actually get a prediction right this year.
And also you'll bring people up to speed with the opening round of Super League, obviously.
Yes.
That's kicking off. But it wouldn't really be a 100th show without a question for you guys. Favorite memory, Brad, of doing 100 shows? I think you've been on pretty. Might have missed one or two initially, but I think you've been on pretty much.
I've been on every show. Thank you very much.
Everyone.
I
didn't do any with Sanjay on my own.
No, I was always here.
Always there's 100 shows you've been on. Which any good memories?
Nah. There's been so many. There was just starting out with Sanjay and never speaking to a camera, doing all my league stuff, just writing and keeping myself where I can make sure I write the right thing and not just say silly things like I do all the time on the show. Interviewing Cameron George, back when there was that period of time where it was just me with you in the background. That was probably a interesting moment, doing all those episodes, just me talking to a camera, with you jumping in to help me out.
It is tough talking on your own. I agree. It's much easier when you've got someone else.
And also, it helped through that time having Simon always giving input. So it felt like I just wasn't talking to myself in a room. But so many memories. Getting guys like the Real and Hammer Boys, the relationship we've got with them. Getting them to jump on. I think they were on. I think the first time they came on with us was the 50th.
Yeah, I believe so.
If I can recall, things like that. But and just all the fun we get to have. It makes me be a bit more social, especially during COVID when there was a lot of time you didn't get to talk to people. So the Wednesday night talking to you two and everyone that watches was pretty much the only time most people got to talk. I got to leave the house every day and go to work, but I don't really talk to a lot of people at work anyway. So, and most of the people I know don't like rugby league, so it's always great getting on here to talk about the Warriors and rugby league since Richard abandoned me and went to the other side of the island.
So, Richie, I think this is your third season. You're kicking off now. Any sort of moments that have that stuck in your mind?
Every time we discuss the judiciary and high tackles and seeing Brad's reaction and what was the birth of the thug life. Yeah, exactly.
And there'll be many more of those this year, I'm sure.
There'll be many more. I'm sure there will be.
Absolutely. Cool.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. No, we went a bit longer than normal. But thanks so much for being with us for 100 episodes. It's almost an hour and a half. It's an hour and a half.
It's longer than it's longer than I tell you to aim for, which is an hour. But it's not longer. It's not that much longer than normal.
We usually go an hour 15. We're going like an extra 10. But yeah,
I feel like this is normal.
It may be with an extra team now. You never know, Paul. You might have to be in for long ones. But yeah, thank you all for joining us tonight. And looking forward to seeing what happens this year. Hopefully, we'll probably, fingers crossed, we're more positive hosts. If the Warriors do a bit better, we'll kind of the lowest of all low last year for a long period of time, and it was a struggle talking about the games. But yeah, thanks for sticking it out with us, and see you next week on Wednesday, 8 p.m.